HOA Karen tries to control my pool, but she's not ready for my revenge. It was a Saturday morning in the quiet suburban neighborhood of Oak Ridge Heights. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, and I was preparing for a much-needed break from the usual chaos of life. I had a few days off work, and it was the perfect time to finally tackle some much-needed maintenance on my backyard pool. The water had started to smell stale. Algae was creeping up the sides like an unwanted guest, and there were cracks forming around the edges. It was time to drain it and get it back to a state that was worth swimming in. As I stood there, garden hose in hand, sipping on an ice-cold soda, I thought, this is the life. The pool was on my property, my backyard, my rules. I'd even checked the city codes and HOA guidelines, ensuring I wasn't stepping on anyone's toes. And yet, there was one person in this neighborhood who would never let me live in peace. Sarah Karen Thompson, my neighbor. She'd always been a bit much. The kind of person who thought everyone's lawn needed to look the same, who thought the neighborhood's aesthetic was her personal responsibility. If you didn't follow her rules, you were automatically on her list of problems. But I had no idea how far she would go over a simple pool drainage. I was ankle-deep in chlorinated water when I heard it, a shrill scream that could have sent a flock of birds into panic. "Stop draining our pool!" she yelled, her voice carrying over the fence, the wood and hedges doing little to mute her rage. I blinked, confused. "It's my pool," I shouted back, still unsure if she was just messing with me. But then I heard the unmistakable sound of a phone dialing. And before I knew it, she was yelling into the receiver, "911! I need to report a man destroying neighborhood property." I froze. This wasn't a joke. This was real. The next thing I knew, 2 police cruisers were pulling into my driveway. Yes, my lazy Saturday had turned into a live episode of Karen versus reality. When the officers approached, they looked between Karen, standing there like an angry bull, and me, holding the garden hose and trying to figure out how this had escalated. "Is this your property?" one of the officers asked me. "Yes," I said, "and the pool is mine too." Karen, not missing a beat, chimed in, "This pool has been visible to the entire neighborhood for years. It's part of the shared community aesthetic." The officer looked at her like she had 3 heads. "Visible doesn't mean shared, ma'am. If that were the case, every garden bed would be a public park." The officers weren't buying it. They weren't issuing citations, but they did give me some advice. Maybe get taller hedges next time. Karen, however, wasn't done. As they left, she stood there, muttering about how this wasn't over. I had a feeling she wasn't going to let it go easily. And boy, was I right. The next day, I noticed a flyer on my mailbox in bold Comic Sans. "Pool vandalism in our midst. Emergency HOA meeting proposed." She had even attached a blurry photo of me holding the hose, a red circle drawn around my face with the words "Pool Criminal" written in Sharpie. I shook my head and sighed. This wasn't just a nuisance. It was turning into a full-on battle. Karen had declared war, and I wasn't about to just sit back and let her have her way. Days passed, and the situation escalated. Karen began posting about my heinous crime on the HOA Facebook page. She created fake violations, sent out newsletters about my water management violations, and even recruited a guy named Brent to do a neighborhood water audit. When he came over with his clipboard and awkward smile, I couldn't help but laugh. "Water audit? Really?" I asked, watching him flip through his papers, looking for something to justify his ridiculous visit. But things didn't get better. That's when I decided it was time to take control. I installed motion-triggered floodlights, sprinklers that would activate at the slightest movement, and an outdoor speaker system that could play a recording of Karen's own voice, captured from our previous confrontations. Then, one night, Karen tried to sneak into my yard again. This time, she had a duffel bag full of chemicals, ready to refill my pool in some twisted act of community restoration. As soon as she crossed into my yard, the sprinklers went off, drenching her from head to toe. Then, the speakers kicked in, playing her own voice, screaming, "This is community property. You'll regret this," she shrieked, stumbling backward and nearly tripping over my flower beds, before running off like a drenched raccoon. I could hardly contain my laughter. This was just too perfect. But the drama wasn't over. Karen didn't give up. She tried to host a community pool party at my house, using old pictures of my pool when it was still full. When the neighbors showed up, expecting to swim, they found the pool dry and locked behind a gate. Karen tried to spin it, shouting that the HOA had drained the pool out of spite. But the jig was up. The neighbors, realizing they'd been duped, quickly left. The HOA finally stepped in, and Karen's actions were publicly condemned. She was banned from participating in HOA activities. As I stood there, arms crossed, watching her humiliation unfold, I realized this wasn't just about a pool. It was about standing up to someone who thought they could control everything. Someone who believed their way was the only way. When it was all over, I made a mural in the pool. It was a cartoon of Karen holding a hose and getting blasted by sprinklers, with a speech bubble that said, "This is what entitlement gets you." It was petty. It was perfect. And it sent a message to anyone who thought they could cross my boundaries. But the best part? The neighborhood finally returned to normal. People waved again. The holiday decorations became bolder. The kids played outside without fear of Karen calling the HOA on their sidewalk chalk. And the Wilsons, the new neighbors, brought cupcakes and offered to help with the pool repairs. I guess, in the end, Karen's obsession with controlling the neighborhood had a silver lining. It brought the rest of us closer together. So, what do you think? Was I right to fight back, or did I take it too far? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever had a Karen moment in your neighborhood, share your story. Let's see if we can start a revolution against entitled HOA bullies.